everybody. It's Dina Hall, and this is Flex Adapt with Intent. It is Wednesday, and that's the time that we get into a conversation talking about contemplating, sometimes performing arts. Tonight, we're going to talk about fine art, visual art, during uncertain times. And the uncertain time at this point in time is about making art during a pandemic. I'm very excited tonight and pleased to meet my guest tonight, and I hope that you are as well. Won't you please welcome Mandy Martin? Hi.
Hello.
It's very good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You are in your studio.
Yep.
In your studio there, and this is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Sellersville?
Yes, I'm in Sellersville.
You're in Sellersville. That Bucks County to me is sort of synonymous with art.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that it's absolutely true in some ways?
Yeah. There's definitely some good art communities going on here in Bucks County. I really enjoy the art community in the Lehigh Valley as well, though.
That's true. There is, yeah. How long have you been in that area?
I have been in this area since I was 7 years old. So I'm originally from Central Illinois, but my parents moved here when I was a kid and we never went back.
That's beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. The area, and I've often wanted to move there myself. But I do love being here in Bethlehem, and there's an absolute appreciation for not just art, but music and cultural reaches. You can get to just about anything here, which is great. And you're not far from Philadelphia.
No, I'm kind of in a happy medium in between the two. So it's really nice to be close to the city as well.
Very cool. So what's your origin in making art?
Well, I've been making art since I was a kid. But when I went to college, I actually was a business major, and I just took some fine art and graphic design courses on the side. Decided that at that point in my life, it wasn't what I wanted to do full time. And so I went into the corporate world for about 12 years. The whole time I was still kind of making little things on the side, like you do when you're a creative person.
Yeah.
I never quite let go completely of my art, but it wasn't until I resigned from my corporate position, we adopted 2 kids, and once they got a little bit older and a little bit more self-sufficient, that's when I really started getting into painting. And I started doing it early 2018, kind of as a form of self-care.
Wow.
And it just kind of took off from there. I discovered the intuitive painting methodology, which is, kind of like following your heart, your instincts, emotions in the work. And when I latched onto that, I just never looked back.
Oh my goodness. And so did you just start on large scale canvas? What kind of medium did you use?
I dabbled around with some collage materials at first, and then I started gooping in some acrylic paint. And once I got my hands in the acrylics, they've come a long way since I was in college 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The pigments are really rich. So once I got into the acrylics, I just kept going with that. And so I started buying canvases right away. I worked on paper as well. You can gesso paper and it becomes a surface that you can kind of goop up with acrylic paint. And after a while, I realized my favorite thing is painting on large canvases. So I have a little bit of a canvas habit.
Cool. So acrylic is really your main source.
It is.
Yeah. Where does that inspiration come from? I mean, often very different, or let's talk about that.
Sure, yeah. So a lot of my inspiration comes just from the natural world. I love flowers. If anyone's seen my work, you can see it right behind me.
Yeah.
I love flowers. I especially love poppies, and they've become kind of a signature flower that I paint a lot of. I always knew I wanted to paint flowers from the minute that I picked up a paintbrush. And so I get inspiration from the landscape of Bucks County here. I get inspiration from travels. from going to, I love to go to the Caribbean in the winter. It's really nice to escape the cold of the Northeast and
Mhm.
get somewhere warm. So I get inspiration from the colors in that part of the world too.
I have not traveled very far, and the only photos I've ever seen of the Caribbean have been absolutely vibrant,
Mm,
like almost oversaturated color. Is it
hmm.
true?
It really is true. You feel like
Wow.
you're walking into one of those postcards. And I used to hate those photos of the Caribbean because they looked so fake to me.
Yeah.
But once I was there, it's actually, that's how it is.
Wow. Don't tell anyone. I might want to have to get on a plane and go somewhere. I've got like a perfect attendance record. I've never been on a plane. I've never flown. So, if I do, then I can never say I've never done it.
Right, right.
Silly thing to hold on to. I know. Um, that's okay. That's very cool. Um, so, do you have you found ways to paint any other types of surfaces? Have you experimented with anything else?
I have. I've painted on wood a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the texture as much as I like painting on canvas. I have painted, like I said, some on paper. Paper is an interesting substrate for acrylics because it can hold up if the paper's heavy enough. But
Well,
I mostly work on
yeah.
canvas.
And then those end up in galleries, and or people can buy them directly from you.
That's right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
show my work in galleries mostly here in southeastern Pennsylvania. I show at a few festivals in the area, and then my work is also available on my website.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of that artwork.
Sure.
Should we start? You sent over some images. I'll put them up on the screen, and you just want to, launch into talking about them. It'd be very cool.
Yeah, I would love to
Okay.
do that.
Let's start with what is this called? Awake from
Yes.
2019. Okay.
Yep. This painting is called Awake, and I painted it in the spring of 2019. I thought it was a nice one to start off in our conversation because the colors in it really say springtime to me. It's a painting that shows these brilliant purple poppies, which actually are a real thing. Poppies
Yeah.
do come in purple. Um, and in the background, I kind of have an abstract thing going on with color there that sort of reminds me of what it feels like after a rain shower. So you can kind of see sunlight peeking through, but you kind of get this sense of wetness and water. And the name for this painting, Awake, is kind of a dual meaning. So it's talking about the earth waking up in the springtime, but it's also talking about our need to stay awake to injustice in the world and the things that we can do to maybe affect change.
Oh, I love the colors.
Thank you.
The
This one was really special. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
This painting went all the way down to the Anne Marie Art Center in Solomon, Maryland, where they were having a juried exhibition. And that show was last summer, so summer of 2020. And what ended up happening was I was accepted, this painting was accepted. I decided to drive it down there rather than try to ship it. And I ended up driving down just as the lockdown was easing up. And so there was barely any traffic on the roads. People were just figuring out that we needed to wear masks everywhere we went. And
Yeah,
it was a very kind of eerie, surreal drive. It felt like I was in a movie, in like a post-apocalyptic movie or something.
I'll
To,
bet.
yeah, to drive down 95 for hours
Wow.
and hours and very few cars on the road.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was a really nice experience. It's a beautiful center. It's a Smithsonian affiliate, so it was a really nice show to be in. And the painting ended up winning a juror's award and then selling. So I didn't have to go all the way down to pick it up.
So
So
you
that was
dropped you
nice.
left it there for the show and
Yep,
didn't have to go back. Wow.
yep.
What's the size on that? The
It's
dimensions?
yeah, 36 by 36 inches.
Oh, it's a square.
It's a
It's
square.
distorted in the image.
Yeah,
But I see
yeah,
it now. I see the line. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good for you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
This is a fun one to start with because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of did a little journey and then found a home. So
That's cool. That's the best you
yeah,
can ask for.
yeah,
Wow. All right. I'll move on to another one.
sure. So the next one that I sent you is one that I completed in 2020, and it's a very different piece. It's an abstract painting. It's bigger than a wake. This one is 48 by 48 inches, and it's part of my Portal series.
And this one, I'm sorry, this is Dreamcatcher?
This is Dreamcatcher. Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So
I could
this
s-
one, oh, go ahead.
no, I could see that in my house.
Yeah. It's hanging in my house right now. My
Yeah.
favorite ones make it upstairs out of my basement
Ah.
studio and into the living area.
Mm-hmm.
So, this painting was the culmination of an abstract series I did that I called my Portal series. So, I was exploring this idea of portals into a different realm, or some people call them thin places, which are places where you can have a connection to the divine or to the spiritual realm. So, I built up these layers of paint on the canvas, and then I kind of created these circular windows that you can look through and try to see what's happening beyond. And this one, I named it Dreamcatcher because it kind of reminded me of that place when you're in between dreams and you're kind of awake but not asleep, and asleep but not awake. And you almost have a choice if you're going to go back into the same dream or into a different dream. So it kind of reminded me of that in between worlds feeling.
Wow, I have personally been experiencing that lately.
Really?
I've never really talked about dreams, but the year 360 some days have culminated into so much stress for me in the last month or so that my dreams are very chaotic and out of control and bleeding from one into another and then bleeding into the daytime, like right into the morning. So I that what you're talking about, like waking up momentarily, and then for me it's been the need to go back and reconcile or fix or go back and tell somebody no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's really timely right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
beautiful.
yeah, I love this one. It will be a hard one to let go if it ever does find a home
Oh,
because I just really love it.
tell me about how you paint the circles.
Yeah, I freehand those. So
Wow.
I kind of when the painting's in an earlier stage, there are circles all over the canvas,
Mm-hmm.
kind of on top of these messy layers of expressive paint that I've created. And then I slowly start to hone it in and decide which ones to eliminate based on what I think is going to look most interesting. And then I just keep going over them in circles and circles until they kind of get defined as being more circular. But I want them to look organic at the same time. Like I could get out
Sure.
tools and I could make them very
Yeah.
precise, but I like the look that someone painted this by hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely has that. Um, do you have to step back? Like I've always been intrigued by people who paint murals because I know there's a method for painting murals, large ones on buildings, things like that. Do you just have to really step back quite a bit to get a perspective on the symmetry of them?
Definitely. It
Yeah.
really helps to step back. I tend to paint things like this by hanging the canvas up on the wall. So I have a wall in my basement studio that I can just pop it right up on a couple of nails. And it works better for me than an easel because I like to allow paint to drip down the canvas.
Hmm.
So I like that vertical aspect of painting up on the wall. And
Yeah.
then it also allows me to step back as often as I need to kind of check the composition and check the balance. And in the case of those circles, to see if they're getting wobbly or oblong.
Yeah. I used to have a geometry teacher in seventh grade. He would stand with his back to the chalkboard. He held a piece of chalk in his hand. I'm going to try to do this. And he would completely make a circle with his arm behind him, and he'd make the most perfect circles, as if his hand was one of those, like a compass
Yeah,
in
wow.
his hand. It was absolute, and he would do this over and over and over again. I try to remember his name, but it doesn't really matter. Everyone was like, "How do you do that?"
That's
There
amazing.
are people that can draw perfect circles.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
I guess
anyway,
so.
this is the that's a I was really really interested when I saw this image for the first time. I was really intrigued by that.
Hmm.
Yes. All right. Shall we move to the next one?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think the next one you're going to show is the physical painting that's sitting behind me right now. Or
Yeah,
is that the
I think
one?
so. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this one is from this year, and I just finished it a couple of weeks ago. The name of this painting is Confidence, and it's featuring poppies again. And these ones are kind of the traditional, brilliant, bright red poppies.
Yeah.
And this painting has an interesting backstory. So I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to do. This is part of my summertime series. I've made a whole bunch of pieces in this series. And when I got to this big canvas, I thought I really knew what I wanted. And I created the underpainting. And I was working on several pieces simultaneously, which is how I usually work. And I came back to it the next day and I did not like it. I thought, oh my goodness, I've ruined this canvas.
Oh.
So I actually turned it around and faced it toward the wall, which is what I do when I'm frustrated with my paintings. And oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just left it for a couple weeks and I worked on a bunch of other work in the meantime. And
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a good technique if something's frustrating us creatively, to give it a break.
Give it a break. Well,
But
I've talked with people who write songs. Same thing.
yeah,
And I've had that happen myself. I put something away or maybe a year or more, and then come back to it, and you can see it with fresh eyes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I came back to it, I still wasn't overly happy with it, but I just decided that I had nothing to lose because after this point, if I wrecked it, I would have to sand it down and start over. And so I thought it can't get any worse. So I took a really large brush and started painting these poppies on it. And I used these really big, loose, expressive strokes. And I kind of got them roughed in and I stepped back and I went, oh my goodness, I think this is going to be okay. Like all of a sudden it just all clicked and it all made sense. And you have to understand this is a kind of a subject matter I work in a lot. And so for me to feel like it wasn't going to work was very rare for me. It was very disconcerting.
Yeah.
Um, but I was really thrilled with how it came out. And that feeling of hitting it with a large brush and just kind of very loose and free is actually what inspired me to name it Confidence, because if I
Oh.
can take that approach in my work, it actually turns out better than kind of a timid and tighter
Mm-hmm.
approach.
Yeah, I do understand that. What's the significance of what is that, S94? Is that
Good
what I'm seeing?
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some numbers on the other side of the canvas that
Okay.
my arm is blocking there.
Okay.
So it's completely random.
Oh.
The numbers and letters are random, but I'm kind of referencing when we used to use cameras with actual physical film in them, and the film would have those mysterious numbers down the side of it if you ever looked at it.
Yeah, yeah, I
We're
do. I
sort of like
know.
randomly placed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing this in a bunch of my work right now because I want to refer to a time when everything wasn't digital. Like before the digital age, I want to refer to a time when we were making more things with our hands than we were making on screens. And
Mm.
so that's just kind of a reference to that. And then the other thing I'm doing in this series, which is for the same reason, but it's different, is I'm allowing the paint to drip over the edges of the canvas. These are thick gallery wrapped canvases. I'm allowing the paint to drip over the edges and I'm leaving it that way. And I'm filling in the gaps, but I'm just letting the paint drips show because again, I want it to feel like it was made by hand and not like it was something that could have been mass produced and sold in a home goods store or at Target.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like my little nod to the relevance and the importance of things that are made with people's hands, that you can see the human touch.
Do you think, have you been thinking about, um, right now we're doing so much of this virtually. People are basically living online. They're making all of their connections this way. And at some point, we're gonna. I'm not gonna give away my feelings right now, but of course, we're all gonna, have to get back to what we used to do normally. What do you think people are going to feel? Can we predict what people are going to feel about the digital aspect versus what you're talking about, the analog or the organic creativity, all of that?
That's a really good question. One thing about being on a screen is you can really control what people see of you. You can kind of like zoom in on head and shoulders. You can make sure that the front of you looks okay. You can control the environment they're viewing you in. But then when you go and you meet with people in person, it's so different because they can see all the angles of your face that you don't like as much, or the back of your hair on a bad hair day or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a big adjustment especially for people that have been like working and even communicating with friends almost exclusively on Zoom or some other platform.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting points that you're making. I've been thinking similarly. I'm almost to the point where I've been starting to get outside in the last 2 days because the weather got good here. Very nice, very warm. I started doing work outside. I don't want to be inside doing this kind of thing. I want to be out there making things. I'm, you know, working in the landscaping, working with wood. I'd like to work with wood and build things. And
Mhm.
I mean, I can do this. I enjoy it very much, but I want to be tactile. I want to touch things and smell things and feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I really do wonder how that's going to affect the psyche when we have that choice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I have some friends that are really experiencing some anxiety about things opening back up and about going back into the world, which I think is really understandable,
Yeah.
especially if we've been so careful for this long. Um, I think that there is some warranted anxiety there for people.
I agree with that. And let's see. We're going to come up to the last piece that we're going to talk about. Um, Let me get this shared.
Yep, go ahead.
Um,
So this last piece I sent you, I believe, is the Musikfest poster.
yes, it is.
Yeah. So the photo that we're going to see is actually me standing with the canvas that the
Mm-hmm.
artwork was
Yeah.
um, created on.
Yeah.
So the Musikfest poster I made on a canvas that is 48 inches high by 36 inches wide. And this was a really interesting collaboration with Arts Quest. I worked with their creative lead there, and they contacted me now over a year ago. So it was before the COVID lockdown
Mm-hmm.
that they asked me to come up with some sketches for them for a Musikfest poster. And they wanted my poppies, which I was thrilled about.
Yeah.
But none of us knew what was coming. So I worked on a couple of ideas, and this is the composition that they chose. And on the Musikfest poster, there's a whole bunch of elements that have to be included in the poster at this point in time. So I had to make sure they all fit in,
Yeah, that's what I
which
was
is
going to ask
interesting.
about.
Yeah.
So you have the owl.
Yes. Artie the
This
Owl.
Artie, I didn't know he had a name.
He has a name. I received an education in this process.
Yeah. Well, I've one who lives in Bethlehem watches the poster evolve year after year. We see the banners get hung. We see the flags, here and there. We see it all. And I'm going to be totally honest. This is absolutely my favorite. And I've lived here 20
Aw.
years. The moment I saw the announcement, the moment I saw this, I just practically leapt out of my chair because
Oh, thank you.
well, yeah, I mean, you talk about hope, you talk about the poppies. I had no idea that there was a correlation. Um, I had no idea there was a correlation, poppies and hope. And so it made me, want to learn more and read more about it, but I truly felt that. And are those daisies?
Yeah, they are daisies. They're daisies they have little tambourines in the
Oh
centers
my
of them that are
goodness.
kind of hidden in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's just something so comforting in this poster because we have no idea what August is going to bring. We just
right.
don't know. We don't know if it's going to be millions of people or hundreds of people. We have no idea. And I thought this was absolutely wonderful. So how did this come to be that you were they taking submissions? Did someone reach out to you?
Yeah, someone reached out to me directly and said, "Hey, can we meet for coffee?" Because people used to do that back then. And
Yeah.
so I drove from Sellersville up to Bethlehem and met with Julianne Masenheimer, the creative lead there at Arts Quest. And she said, "I love your artwork." I said, "Which ones do you like?" And she showed me a bunch of my paintings. And I said, "Oh, okay." She
Hmm.
said, "I'd like you to try to do a poster design for us." And that was different for me because I haven't been working as a graphic designer, which is maybe a more common person that you would ask to do work like this, maybe a graphic designer, maybe an illustrator, but I was really working as a fine artist
Hmm.
and slapping paint around and not listening to anybody's requirements. So it was a stretching experience, but in a really good way.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine it was. And over the years, I know I've seen the posters over time. Some of them included illustration, which
Mhm.
sort of a combination of fine art and what we would call commercial art.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah, and a lot of time, like I know last year was pretty much out there, as in um, sort of spacey. Um, I was trying to remember what the character was in a spacesuit,
Hmm.
um, landing on a planet or the moon or something like that. Um, and yeah, yeah. So so this is complete and it's ready for it'll be used in all of the print production as well.
Yeah, they're already making the mugs from what I understand. So I'm
Hmm.
excited to see those soon. And it'll be used for the posters and everything.
So my thought process now, as someone who's worked in graphic design, who's worked in print promotion, all of that. So we take this canvas, which you said is 50, I forgot how the
It's
size of the
4 feet
dimensions,
high, so
four
it's
four
48
feet.
inches. Yeah.
So that has to be now scanned in
Yes.
some way to get on a mug that's only, you know, that much, was maybe 6 inches of real
Yeah.
estate on there, 6 inches high. Do you know the process that goes through?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the scanning is complete, and I took it to a special art shop in North Wales that does scanning and can handle a canvas this size. And that was part
Oh.
of what went into. I wanted to paint this as large as possible to allow room for expression in the
Mm-hmm.
brushstrokes.
Mm-hmm.
But I also needed to make sure before I started that they would be able to scan it and get a really good color matched image of it digitally at a high enough resolution for all these print media. So I found a place that could do it, and they actually have a flatbed scanner. They had to scan the painting in in 4 sections and then kind of digitally stitched them together. And then we went through color matching and an approval process to make sure that it was all good to go. So yeah, so then that image, someone at Arts Quest is taking it and they're reconfiguring it slightly to wrap around a mug because that's, a bit of a more of a landscape orientation. But they wanted the poster created initially in this portrait orientation. So that's the way I made it.
That's great. Oh my goodness, I had a wonderful question I was going to ask. It was fabulous. Nobody knows what it was, but it was really a good question.
I'm sure it was. Maybe it'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me as we talk a little bit more. So the scanning. So this actual canvas, the original, where will that live? Will that be auctioned? Will it be sold?
It will be available for sale. So I'm going to be doing a solo exhibition this summer at Arts Quest, actually at their center at Steel Stacks. And so this painting will be one of the paintings that's on exhibit there, and it will be for sale.
Did everybody hear that? We'll have to remind everyone. Yeah. I mean, I assume that something similar to that happens each year. I've just never been part of that discussion, so that's really intriguing to me. And I don't imagine that every year it's created in such a large scale format either.
Not always. I know the poster last year, I believe that Doug created part of it on a large paper format, but then he scanned it in and did some digital illustration and layers on top of it, which got a really nice result. So, but I believe this might be a larger substrate than what he started with. I'm not sure about that though. But one thing that was really interesting that happened while I was making the painting, it was around early June of 2020. And the painting went through a really dark stage. So I was working and events were happening around the nation. George Floyd was murdered, and I was really impacted by that. I was already somewhat aware of the impacts of racism in our society, but it just took it to a whole different level for me as it did for many other people. And so we took the kids and we were in a local march for Black Lives Matter. And I was really uncertain about the future of our country and if everyone would be given a fair shot, and really concerned about things like that. So the painting got really dark for a while. And I had an interesting call with Julianne where she said, Mandy, the composition is looking great, but it's really dreary. And she said, can you do something to lighten it up? And I actually ended up, I put up a big sign in my studio that said, the world needs hope and I can give them that. And so I stuck it up on the wall. And I started listening to recordings from music festivals while I painted. And it reminded me of the energy that happens between a live performer and a crowd, which I'm sure you know, Dina. You can't duplicate that in any other way.
You can't.
And I thought, oh my goodness, we need to remember this wonderful gift that we have as humanity, and that we will get back to that. I don't know what it will look like in 2021, but I felt like I needed to capture that magic that happens. And so that's when I started kind of adding in these little kind of twinkly magical lights that are happening in the background of the painting, just to evoke that feeling and that sense that we have something to look forward to.
I think that's what I felt. To me, the flowers, the poppies are just coming out like, almost like voices coming forth. And what are the green? I can't see it. It's because it's too small, and I don't want to get really close to it right now because I would look funny in the camera. But what are the green vertical images in the bottom?
Yeah, so they are kind of an abstract version of greenery that I put in a lot
Okay.
of my artwork,
Mm-hmm.
kind of representing grass or other plants popping up. But then among some of those green bits there, I kind of hid the steel stacks.
Sure, I see that. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so those
Yep.
those are in there kind of popping up along with the greenery. Some people have said that it reminds them a little bit of maybe a bass guitar in there somewhere.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
I could almost see, I don't know what they're called, but the things you press on a trumpet when you play it, the keys or
Mm-hmm.
whatever those are, I could see some of those kind
Oh,
of floating
sure.
around in
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting abstraction, and you can use your imagination a lot with
That's
that part.
what the abstract uh, component of it really allows you to uh, you feel you project your own feelings. I mean, you take from it. And again, I'm going to keep making the songwriting analogies. You know, someone writes a song that might be very personal to them, and it might mean something to you. But once you set it free, everyone who hears it has their own interpretation. Um, and that I think that's the best. Some of the best songs, the best art, the best everything is that you put it out there and everyone can interpret in their own way and how it affects them.
Yeah, I
Uh,
completely agree with
yeah.
that. Some of the paintings that have gone in a most meaningful way to a collector have been abstract work that the person has asked me to explain what it meant to me, and I share it with them,
Hmm.
and then they've come back and said, "It that's beautiful, but it means something completely different to me."
Yeah.
And I see how they can take hold of that, and then they own part of the painting, they own part of the creativity that's in it,
Hmm.
and I just think that's honestly, that's one of the things I've missed the most about this whole COVID situation is not being able to have that dialogue with people about the art.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about that a little bit more. Um, um, I don't want to leave this just yet
Okay.
um, because, you know, there's just so much about the fact that, you know, there was no festival last year. You know, I got to be part of it, playing music from the Service Electric Cable TV studio,
Mhm.
which, you know, where you're talking about this live interaction. You know, over time, I've done played a few times from here, from this little studio at home, and sort of learned how to sing to the little dot on the camera. But and then in that situation, you know, in that little studio, the the connection and not just in each venue, not just at each stage, not just um, between the audience and the musicians, but the whole community, the the give and take, and the energy
Mhm.
just flying all over, just bouncing molecules all over the place, back
Yeah.
and forth of good energy. That's what I see when I look at this. All of
Mhm.
that. It's a community. It's just a community rising and blossoming and just wow. I could I don't know that I've ever really been impacted by a piece of artwork as much as I am this one. And I know feels very vulnerable to say that and talk about it because I don't talk about art. I
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have the education. I don't have, you know, a whole lot of knowledge. I don't read about it. I don't consume it. I don't go to galleries and talk about it. So that's why I think this really has affected me personally in the way that it has. Um,
Yeah, well,
so
that means a lot to me because it for me as an artist, it's validating the spirit that I tried to put into the piece. It's really
yeah,
nice when that comes through.
yeah, wonderful. So you know, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take that off the screen if we can move the
Sure.
conversation a little differently. Um, taking off of what you just talked about, you know, being out, maybe you're at a gallery, maybe you're at a show, and you're talking with people about the different pieces. That's
Mhm.
that's that's where you make that connection.
It is, and it's
I
been
miss it.
really strange to be a studio artist and not have that in and out. I don't know how to describe it, but being in the studio and then being out of the studio and being
Hmm.
in those other environments where I can meet people that love art and talk about art with them. That's been really weird this past year. And for a while, I was really struggling with it. I think in a way it's been good for me as an emerging artist because it's given me time to develop my voice without being as swayed by people's opinions, which I think is also important. But I miss hearing what people connect with in the pieces. There's something about that
Yeah.
energy that I can bring back with me, and it encourages me and it kind of provides new inspiration.
Do you miss the pieces when you sell them?
It depends. Some pieces, when I'm finished with them, I have to be honest, some pieces, when I'm finished with them, I am sick of them.
Yeah.
And so if someone finds delight in it, I am just so happy, and I'm always grateful when a piece finds a home to begin with, but, other ones, it's harder to see them go.
Do you
So,
ever get reunited?
I have seen photos of people's paintings in their homes, which I love to see that.
Yeah.
Some of my collectors I'm on more of a personal relationship with now, so I know if I ever kind of had a hankering to visit the painting, they would let me.
Mm, yeah. I'm reading down here in some of the things that you've written about in your about section, I think on the website maybe, but it says interior design collaborations. So you have these paintings and someone buys it and you're happy to help them work it into their home or their studio or their office maybe.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that that can work. Excuse me. So, in one scenario, I've had people come to me for commission work that want it for a specific space. They want it for this wall or this room in these colors. And can I put together something that has maybe they like the poppies or they like another flower or they like some of my more abstract work, and I can tie together the colors that are in the room, kind of the ideas that they're giving to me. One person that I really enjoyed working with in Allentown, she needed something for right beside the front door. She really loved one of my pieces, but it was too big, and she wanted me to make something especially for that space and that size. So that's what I mean when I say interior design
Hmm.
collaborations. I work with designers. I've also worked with some art advisors who are putting together artwork for a new building or a new installation. So there's a lot of different ways that that can come together. But I like the collaborative aspect of it.
Yeah.
I like hearing all the elements that need to come together, and then it's kind of a puzzle to put that into a piece.
And so if she says, if you need it to fit this particular space, you can just have the canvas made,
Right.
or they just happen to come in the size
Yeah,
that you
canvases
needed.
come in a lot of
Different
sizes now.
sizes. Yeah.
It's gotten a lot easier to find canvases in some unique and custom sizes. But yeah, that's a fun thing to do. So she really wanted a certain piece that had this deep royal blue in the background, red poppies on the front, but it needed to be kind of long and narrow.
Mm.
So that's what we were working toward.
Are
And
you finding that it's more and more difficult to get the supplies that you want um, in actual stores or art stores, or are you buying them all online?
so I'm sad about this, but I am buying most of my supplies online at this point. I have tried to patronize the Blick store that's in Allentown.
Mm.
I think
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember.
it's
I've
it's a
been there.
yeah, I love Blick in general. Um, it was hard to get up there during the lockdown, and I found myself with a lot of time on my hands, and I needed a lot of
Sure.
canvases. So
Yeah, that became a I mean, I've been in the same situation with buying guitar strings and other necessary items for we've got to keep doing what we're doing, and yet not wanting to go into the local music store that I would ordinarily patronize normally. I did eventually. I just
Right.
waited and waited, and I said, "Okay, I'm just I need this." And I thought, "Oh, that's not enough. Give me this too. Oh, wait, I'm not spending enough with you. Give me some more." But
Hmm.
it became really, really difficult to choose to go into a store to get those things that we need.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do visit that store occasionally, but most of my supplies I do buy online.
Yeah. Once you get to the point where you know what you need, it's easy enough.
Yeah.
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 Can
And I
get your
buy
feet
things
up.
in bulk. I buy humongous vats of titanium white paint because
Do
I
you?
go through so much white paint. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How long does it take for those to dry?
The acrylics, they dry
Yeah.
really fast.
Do they?
Yeah. Oil paint can take days to weeks
Days.
to dry.
Yeah.
Acrylics, I'm an impatient painter, so I like it that acrylics dry
Uh-huh.
fast.
Uh-huh.
Although sometimes if I'm working with the paint and I need it to stay wet longer so that I can blend colors together, I keep a little spray bottle. And if
Oh.
you're working in acrylics on canvas, you can just keep re-wetting the canvas to keep the paint wet until you're done working and you've kind of achieved the effect that you want.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, um, these things happen. You know, you reach a certain age and your memory just is not what it used to be. And you have these fabulous questions you want to ask. And this is where it helps to not do it live. And, you have the editing.
Right,
Someone can
right.
come in and edit for you. What I was thinking about is because those are so vibrant.
Hmm.
What about the color fastness of those paints? Do they hold that? Do they Should you keep them out of the sun?
That's a great question. Acrylic paints, the pigments in the paints that I use are really high quality. I'm using Golden brand paints. So the pigments are really vibrant, they're really high quality. And then when the painting is finished, I varnish it with a varnish that is archival.
Yeah.
And I actually like a varnish that has a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not high gloss,
Hmm.
but it's just enough to make the paint pop. And then
Yeah.
that protects it from UV damage, from fading, from dust, from all of those factors. So the paintings that I sell either on my website or in a gallery, they are something that can be passed down for generations, just like an oil painting.
All good to know. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I didn't know I'd have so many questions as we move along. So you have some gallery shows scheduled for 2021
I
upcoming?
do.
I know I saw a couple on your website.
Yeah.
Um, what do you
So
think? You think that's you're going to get out there and do this sort of thing? I see Bethlehem House Gallery for 2021
yeah, I'm going to be there
here in
this summer,
yeah,
which I'm
right
really
down
looking forward to.
right down the street from me.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah,
make sure I keep that in my calendar. Yeah.
definitely.
Um, so you're looking forward to that, huh? Getting out and
I am. I have been in gallery shows during the last half of 2020 when galleries were able to reopen.
yeah,
But it's this type of thing where I go in, I drop off or install my work, I walk out, and I never get to see anybody
yeah,
because they're not having receptions,
hmm,
which is the time to meet the
yeah.
collectors and the art lovers and talk about art and all the wonderful expression that can happen in art. So I'm really hoping that this year we have a little more opportunity to do some of those meet and greets and receptions, and I'll really look forward to that.
I do hope so. I'm hoping that we've this year and maybe a little bit more will be enough to get us into those situations again.
Yeah,
Right.
I do hope so.
Well, I'm going to remind everyone that you can find out those events and also see wonderful examples, and you have the opportunity to buy art from the artist right there, mandymartinart.com. And I didn't happen to notice how does like transaction work on that? Do you one-on-one, get in touch with people and talk to them
Um,
about delivery and all of that?
Yeah, so if someone is interested in buying a painting through the website, what I typically do is I ship it, and shipping is included for any purchase over $50 on my website. But if somebody lives kind of localish, I would say within an hour driving distance, oftentimes I'll deliver the painting,
Mhm.
especially if it's a bigger piece. It's just a lot safer for the artwork. And then I get to meet you, which is
Yeah,
also something I really enjoy.
very cool.
Yeah.
Great. Wow. Well, I have absolutely enjoyed every moment of this. And I thank you so
Yes.
much for being here with me. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yes, I think that's a possibility.
I think so too.
Thank
Cool.
you so much for having me. It's been really fun chatting with you.
Thanks. Mandy Martin, mandymartinart.com. All right. Thanks much. And I'll chat with you again.
Okay, thanks,
Oh,
Dina.
one thing we have to do the high five at the end of
Oh, okay.
every. Can you do it?
Let's see. Which way am I going?
I
Am I?
still don't get it, and I've done this 30
Oh,
times.
it's exactly opposite.
It's
Here,
exactly.
I can't
Hey,
even find the
hey, hit
edge.
me.
There we go. I got you.
That's
That's
it.
harder than it looks.
It's much harder, but now you can say you've done a high five on the internet. All right.
All right.
All right, Mandy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Thanks everyone for watching tonight, and appreciate the comments that we got. Often I often forget to tell you this at the end. 10% of any tips are donated to Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley. So if you're so inclined to help support the program, it is paypal.me/Dina Hall 2020. And I have set up a monthly payment that goes right to Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley, which provides services and resources for pretty much anyone who needs them, who might be in a situation of domestic abuse right here in the Lehigh Valley. And so thank you so much. And that's it for me. I have enjoyed this very much. And next time we get together, I've got John Morgan Kimmock and Sarah Harmon, and they are married. They have a baby. They live here in Bethlehem. And Sarah Harmon is a dancer, a professional dancer. And John Morgan Kimmock is a professional drummer and record producer on a brand new label. So we're going to find out a lot more about that next week on Flex.